I love having guests on Mid-Mornings with Amy. I love it. And I'm especially excited about our guest this morning who's here, but she's not here. I met Laura Steward Atchison. She's our guest this morning in Orlando, Florida. We met at a National Association of Broadcasters conference. She's written a book, which is What Would a Wise Woman Do? And Laura, good morning. You're on the phone with us from Florida.
Good morning, and I understand it's a lot warmer here than it is there.
You were saying it's around 80 degrees in Florida. Is that right?
It is. It's one of those crisp, beautiful fall Florida days. 80 degrees, no humidity.
An 80-degree fall Florida day.
Yes, it's absolutely perfect. The orange groves all around, and the Grove stores just started opening, which means they're starting to pick oranges.
Ooh, Florida oranges. There's nothing better than a Florida orange. So.
Especially just picked. We get to get them when they take them right off the tree and sell them.
Well, you'll have to send some our way here in Somerset.
I will do that.
Laura, we met not too long ago, and you have a book called What Would a Wise Woman Do? And I really want to talk about the book this morning, but before we do, I want our listeners to know a little bit about you, who you are. You're an entrepreneur. You founded a company called Wisdom Learned, which is a consulting company. You worked with big businesses and small businesses, and you're an author. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, as you said, I'm an author and an entrepreneur. I've had several companies over the years. Prior to founding Wisdom Learned, I had started an IT services company, so I am a total geek. For 15 years, I had a company that did business in Connecticut and Florida, and we installed technology for businesses. But I also had a newspaper column, and I loved nothing better than helping businesses with their strategies. So one day, my dad's Parkinson's escalated a little bit, and had retired down to Florida from New York. And I decided to move down to Florida. And about a year after I got here to help my dad and my mom with everything, I said, you know what, it's time to sell the company. I'm done. I'm really done with it. And 8 weeks later, I had sold my company after 15 years. And obviously there's a lot more to that story than you can possibly imagine with the thought processes for, can I sell the company? Should I sell the company? A big one was, am I a failure if I decide to sell my company at this point? Shouldn't I build it bigger? And that all led to the book. While I was ending the contract with the company that bought my company, I was trying to decide what I was going to do next. And I said, you know what? I've always wanted to write a book. And I started praying and thinking about it, and the title, What Would a Wise Woman Do?, came to my mind, and the company Wisdom Learned. And I decided that what is it that my clients really loved? What was the one thing that they kept saying to me over and over again when I worked with them? And they said, you make really great choices. And I was like, really? They should see what goes on inside my head. Because most people don't think about it. They just see your outside.
That's true. And your book is called What Would a Wise Woman Do? Questions to Ask Along the Way. I'm in chapter 4 of the book. It is a wonderful read. And what I like most about what I've read so far is the fact that you talk so much about asking ourselves why we do what we do, not just doing something every day or feeling something every day. There's always an underlying reason for what it is that we do. So why did you want to write the book in the first place? You've talked a little bit about that already, but why did you feel like you were forced to write it? I think sometimes authors have no choice but to write.
It really was that. I couldn't stop until I'd written that book. I started thinking about, like I said, the choices that I made, and people didn't realize the process by which what they saw on the outside happened on the inside. And I wanted people, both personally in their lives and in business, to ask themselves better questions. Because most people ask questions to get the answers they want. But it's so much better if you ask questions to get the answers you need.
What are some of those questions that you provide in the book? You provide a lot of questions that we should ask ourselves, but what are some of those questions that we need to ask ourselves about whatever it is we're involved in?
Well, one of my favorites is why. I just love the why. So once you've figured out what your goal is for something and where it came from, you need to ask why. Why is that my goal? And you need to ask it more than once. And most people don't like to ask themselves why. I mean, you've probably been taught this a number of times, never ask why because people get defensive. Well, if you can get beyond the surface reason for why you're doing something, then you'll know whether it's really something you want to be doing or need to be doing. A great example of this is when I decided to sell my company. I started asking myself, why do I want to sell the company? And when I finally asked myself why for the 5th time, I realized that I wanted to sell the company because I was ready for something new. The first time I asked myself why, it was because I'm really tired. That's not really a good reason to sell something or move on because you're really tired. And each time I went through it, I realized that I was tired because it didn't energize me anymore. And there was nothing I can do to change the company that would do that for me.
You didn't have the passion that you once started with.
I didn't have the passion anymore. So why keep doing it if I don't have the passion?
Do you think that sometimes we just go through the routine of a day and forget that we're supposed to be happy? We don't necessarily always deserve happiness, but we're supposed to be happy. And that's a lot of what your book talks about, is asking questions to get the happy life that you're working for.
Yeah, we get on autopilot. Something happened in our childhood or as we were working through life, and all of a sudden we're on this course. We've taken a job, and we just feel that we need to keep moving up through the ranks of that job and keep doing it, but we're not happy. We're not even happy in our private lives because we get home from work just sort of done. And if we can make ourselves happier and do the things that energize us, everybody around us is going to be happier. One of my clients was an office manager at a big venture capital firm. And when I first met her, I was like, this woman has an incredible brain. I need to understand her backstory. And this is one of the things that got me thinking about what I do with in my book and the questions I pose. She apparently had graduated in the top 10% of her class at Harvard Law. And she was a practicing attorney for like 15 years. And one day she woke up and realized she was completely unhappy. She wasn't doing what she wanted to do. It was what her family wanted her to do. So she quit. And now she's doing what she loves.
Well, good for her. We're talking with Laura Steward Atchison this morning. She is many, many things, an entrepreneur, an IT geek. And that, Laura, those are your words, not mine.
Yes, I am a geek. I'm proud of it.
And she's the author of the book called What Would a Wise Woman Do? Questions to Ask Along the Way. We're going to take a quick break and come back with Laura and talk a little bit about some of those questions that she poses in the book that we should ask ourselves. We're talking with Laura Steward Atchison this morning. She is an entrepreneur, a business owner, a business seller, and an author. And she has written a book called What Would a Wise Woman Do? Questions to Ask Along the Way. And Laura, she's calling in from sunny Florida this morning.
And when I heard you say 46, it still makes me cringe. And I lived in Connecticut and New York for almost all of my life.
It's not extremely cold, though. It's not a cold 48 degrees. Laura, you've written a book, What Would a Wise Woman Do? Questions to Ask Along the Way. And there's so much in this book that we could talk about. And this book is not just for business owners or even people in the professional world, per se. This is for anyone going through any life experience, having any life experience. And it talks about questions that we need to ask ourselves about why we do what we do, why we feel what we feel, and let's talk about 5 things people can do to keep us happy.
Sure. As you said, I wrote the book to hit each area of life that I ask myself questions in that I felt was really good. And these are 5 questions that I really think everybody should be asking, and it doesn't matter whether it's business, relationships, faith, it doesn't matter. The first one is, what is my goal for myself? But not just what is my goal, but where did it come from? Did this goal come from, say, something that happened in my past? And is it still relevant for me? I know that I made decisions growing up because my brother died when I was 10 years old. And I wanted to achieve things for my dad that my brother would have done. Now, I grew up in the early 60s, and there were things that women did and things that women didn't do. And I actually credit a lot of those choices I made to my brother dying that enabled me to run an IT company, to want to do a lot of the things that I did that maybe as a girl growing up in the 60s I might not have done for myself. But I needed to understand where those goals came from. And then also you need to look at, who and what do I need to know to achieve my goal beyond what I could imagine. So not only are you looking at your goal, but you're trying to understand who you need and what you need to achieve it. And then to really make yourself happy and really be successful with whatever you're doing in your life, how can you serve others and make the greatest impact while you're achieving the goal? Because for me, when I've had my businesses, no matter what business I've had, I give a percentage of my profits to charities, to local charities, and I still do that today. With all of the work that I do today, I give a percentage of everything I make to charity. How can I serve people? What can I do to help them further their goals while achieving mine? And that gives me great satisfaction. And then one of the questions that I think is so key to ask is who and what do I need to let go of to make my goal or my dream a reality? And you and I had talked about this a little bit, and while we were off air on the commercials, most people think that they need to bring things in to achieve what they want to achieve in their life. But often we need to let go of things, or sometimes people, because there may be people that are constantly negative in our lives that are trying to bring us down, because some people just don't like others to succeed because they've never been able to succeed. You have to decide who and what you need to let go of.
And that can be a very hard thing to do, especially when people are involved.
And especially if somebody's family that you need to let go of.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean you have to cut them completely out of your life. Maybe you just need to take them away from your inner circle.
That's
your
very
advisors.
That's very true. And you mentioned in your book that we are the company that we keep. And if we want to be happy, we can't surround ourselves with people who want to be miserable all the time.
And there are a lot of people out there that because they're so miserable, they want to make you miserable. But it's not just about who, it's also what. Sometimes you need to let go of belief in order to achieve your goal, which leads to the last question that I encourage everybody to ask is the goal I set still the right goal, or do I need to set a new one?
Because we grow over time, right? We change. Our minds change.
But we get in our head that we have to keep doing the same thing we've always done. Meanwhile, we've learned new things, we've grown, and it's time to move in a different direction.
As an author and a writer, people can read your book and take away so many different things from it. But what do you want the underlining theme of your book to be? When someone closes your book and has read it, what is there are many things, but what is the overwhelming one thing you want people to take away from your book, What Would a Wise Woman Do?
I want people to take away that they can do anything they want in their life if they ask the right question, and that anybody can learn to do that. Anything is possible. It's not the answers that matter. I am reading your book, and again, I would encourage anyone to read this book, and we'll tell everybody how they can get a copy at the end of Mid-Mornings with Amy. But you don't just suggest we ask questions. You provide those questions, and they're good questions, and they're not complicated if you really think about it. And the questions are set up in such a way that they apply to relationships, business, faith, finance, personal crisis, self-perception. So questions you can ask to begin getting yourself thinking again, rather than just being on autopilot, being present and thinking about the words that are coming out of your mouth really makes a huge difference. And my favorite question of all time is the title of the book, What Would a Wise Woman Do? When you're about to do something, before you act on it, say to yourself, what would a wise woman or a wise man do? It stops you. It gives you awareness of the fact you're about to do something and says, let me think about that. Is it really what I want to be doing? Somebody smarter than me, somebody wiser than me, how would they go about doing this? It's my favorite question of all time.
This book is your first published book, is that correct? But you're working on another book.
I am. It's more business-focused. It's called The Emotional Cost of Cashing Out, 7 Questions to Ask Yourself Before You Sell Your Company. It's the entrepreneurial side of mergers and acquisitions, It's, you're selling your baby. What do you need to be asking yourself?
Your first book is What Would a Wise Woman Do? Questions to ask along the way. That's what we're talking about this morning. We're going to take another quick break, get you back to a little music, and when we come back, we're going to tell you how you can get a copy of Laura Steward Atchison's book, What Would a Wise Woman Do? We'll be right back. No matter where you are, what you're doing this morning, I hope you're having a happy morning, and that's what we're talking about today on Mid-Mornings with Amy, how we need to be happy and stay happy. And we're talking with Laura Steward Atchison. She is an entrepreneur and a writer and author. She has written a wonderful book called What Would a Wise Woman Do? Questions to ask along the way. She's been on the phone with us this morning from Florida. Laura, thank you so much for being with us. And tell everybody how they can find your book and get your book.
Well, they can find the book at local booksellers. There's Bookland at the mall by you guys and the Christian bookstore in town. They can get copies there, or they can get it at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. If they're big into independent bookstores, on the Kobo Reader, they can get it on there as well. It's been on Amazon's bestseller list for 45-plus weeks now. It's very exciting. It hit 3 number 1 lists and 3 international lists. And
so people all over the world want to know how to be wise, and I truly think we do. I think everybody wants to be a wise person, ask good questions, make good decisions. If you want to know a little bit more about Laura and her book and her work, you can visit whatwouldAwisewomando.com. We'll put all of this information up on our Facebook page at Somerset 106 so that you can reach out to Laura if you want to talk with her. Talk about your website just a little bit, Laura. We have about 30 seconds, so give us some parting words of wisdom.
Sure. So on the website, you can download sample chapters, sample exercises. There's some videos and resources that you can have to help you ask better questions in your life and in your business. And we have an offer that we're going to be doing just for your readers, where they don't even have to subscribe to your listeners, so they don't have to subscribe to my website. They can just go to it and download some
That's
sample
great, Laura.
exercises.
The next time you join us, you'll have to come to the studio and bring us some Florida oranges. Thanks, Laura.
I would love to do that. That would be great.